Welcome to another episode of the Fantasy Barrel. We got episode 4 cooking up for everyone tonight. The episode name is Espresso Martini. As always, we have our amazing co-host, Javier Vasquez.
How's it going, guys?
Well, today's episode, we have a lot in store. We got the NFL draft that just took place this past weekend. We got a lot of great talking points today, talking about the best picks, talking about teams that really moved the needle up. And we're also going to talk about some boneheaded decisions and teams that didn't do so well. So we'll have our top 5 best teams and our top 3 worst teams. And then at the end, we have a second segment, which we'll be discussing, talking about after the draft, what teams moved in the right direction and are exciting to see now coming into the NFL season for the 24-25. But before we do that, we're going to talk a little bit about the drink of the day. And although my co-host is not drinking today due to personal and health reasons, I will be doing the drinking for him. And so the Espresso Martini is a really nice night cocktail, especially for a Sunday talking sports. My preferred vodka for the Espresso Martini is the Grey Goose. I love the Kahlua coffee rum. It's just consistent. And then for the espresso coffee, we actually do the Cafe Jave, and you get it really nice and pretty, just like how it is right here. Honestly, and it's a pleasure to have. Javi, are you a big drinker of espresso martinis?
I can't say I've ever tried one. So definitely next time I'm up there, I'll probably have to have one.
Absolutely. I'll cook one up for you. But let's get with our first segment and let's go ahead and talk about our first couple of teams that we were really excited to see. So, Javi, what was one team from your top 5 that you really saw in the draft that really moved it up a notch?
With the Pittsburgh Steelers, it's not just because of all of their picks, but they just hit on they got value and they address their needs, right? So with the Pittsburgh Steelers, getting Russ on the cheap too, right? This might be the best offensive line he's ever played behind. And one thing that the Steelers have always prided themselves on defense, and I think they did a lot to address the defense in the draft. But yeah, again, I just go back to the offensive line, right? Like Zach Frazier is like another physical addition to that offensive line. And one thing that you can say about Russ, he doesn't really turn the ball over. So Pittsburgh just needs to get back to like what has always been successful with them, right? Just running the ball, time of possession, and I think Pittsburgh, did a really good job with this draft.
When you really look at, they built the offensive line knowing that they already have some weapons. They got Najee Harris. Yeah, they got the 2 quarterbacks in free agency. And I think out of this draft, getting Troy and Zach Frazier is that they're going to be doing a lot of play action bootleg and getting back to old school Russell Wilson, where he really has the opportunity to extend the play, get the blocking he needs to find his right target. So I do agree, and it all starts with building your interior offensive line. We know they have a tremendous defensive line. Now it's about creating holes in the run and also pass proing and protecting, obviously, the quarterback, which at this point, I think they start with Russell Wilson. If something happens down the line, they do have Justin Fields there. What other pick team did you like out of this draft that really came up with a couple of steals?
I mean, hands down, it has to be the Philadelphia Eagles. I think we both had him on our list. Howie Roseman, that guy's a magician when it comes to the draft. It all started, with I might get this name wrong, Kenyon Mitchell, and I was a Cooper DeJean, which I know that you were really high on, especially like you playing cornerback and safety in football, right? But it doesn't matter like at this point like who the Eagles draft. It just always seems to work out for them, and like we were talking about it, right? The Eagles, they've invested so much money in the offense that they're literally drafting like plug and play players on their defense. So again, Philadelphia, way to like kick ass in the draft. Amazing job.
And I was actually, when I was watching the draft, I was watching a bit of Bleacher, watching ESPN as the draft was going on. And how is it that the Eagles constantly continue to get the best players there? And in doing a lot of research, because it's like, man, you really want to be Howie and GM for every team has to be like Howie. And the approach after doing a lot of research is he doesn't have a draft board. His draft board is the same draft board as everything else. And he's sitting there and he has no personal, oh, yes, this guy I want, this guy I don't want. He kind of lets the flow of the draft orchestrate. And then when he sees a player that's dropping, that shouldn't be dropping, he makes the move. And kudos to him, because where the Eagles are at, a playoff contention team, a team that can get back into the Super Bowl, you have that ability to do so and make those moves to make your team go over the hump. And you hit the nail on the head. Probably my favorite player in the draft, minus Kool-Aid, is Cooper DeJean. And the ability to revamp that with Bradbury, with Darius Slay. Now you have Cooper there who can play multiple positions. He could play safety. He could play free safety. He's got the height. He's got the size, 6'1", 205 pounds, very versatile. I mean, he was a stud in Iowa. I mean, just watching his film, that guy makes plays. And when we're already looking at a dynamic offense, now you even get even better on the defense. I got to give it credit to. And an underrated pick. I know he's not one of the best running backs coming out of this, but I love Will Shipley going to the Philadelphia Eagles. They got Saquon Barkley there. They still have Kenneth Gainwell. But Will Shipley gives him a little bit of a different authority that he can catch maybe 5 passes out of the backfield. He is able to get some good hard-earned runs. And I really like that addition coming into it. And I anticipate seeing the Eagles going deep into the playoffs. I think their Vegas odds definitely had to shot up after this draft, but A+ for them. And credit to Howie for, again, another spectacular draft, just like last year. Now it's again all over again this year. Any other team you got? Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, one more thing to touch up on the Eagles, right? I mean, this might be like a little stupid, right? But what about bringing back Jeremiah Trotter, bringing his son in? You know, if he's anything like dad, they might have gotten a steal as well. So it's like, again, the more I look at all the players that the Eagles were able to acquire in this draft, it's like, man, if only we could be so lucky. But the rich keep getting richer.
The rich get richer, and that's the beautiful thing when you're in that seat and you're looking in the later rounds. You can take those projects. You can wait for them to develop. Take the 1, 2, 3 years, right, and then maybe see them blossom year 3, year 4. And honestly, that could be contract years for your current starters. That all of a sudden you got cheap talent there for a good 4 to 5 years to be able to either be depth or to be able to be a rising starter or even star. So, yeah, I agree with the Eagles and their standpoint. A team that I absolutely love, and if everybody knows me, I'm always been a Miami Dolphin fan, season ticket holder, love my Fins. But my second team that I just love and adore and have probably just as much jersey is the New Orleans Saints. And I have to say that A+ for the New Orleans Saints, and not because I'm a homer. I'm not rating the Fins an A+ draft, but to be able to get just these 3 guys and where they were able to get them, in Tyrese Fagua, the versatile offensive lineman that can play inside, can play outside. He can play any position, just filling the void of Teron Armstead, and the offensive line much needed for Derek Carr, or potentially even now the backup quarterback that they just drafted in Spencer Rattler. And I have to say, where I look at Bo Nix, who was drafted 12, but is ranked 61 or 70, some even lower, just because of his size, his dimensions. And although he's a winner and I love him in college, I just don't see him translating well into the NFL. Here's the counterpart. You have Spencer Rattler, who has all of the body build, the size, the arm. Yeah, he makes bad decisions. Yeah, he played for a very bad South Carolina team that didn't have a lot of talent. But to get him in the 5th round, one may argue that that is a steal, considering that, again, on the worst case, he doesn't pan out. You have him there. He's your backup. We'll see what happens with Derek Carr. And if the Saints are winning, perfect. If not, they can see what they get out of him. And I think in the right system with Olave, with Kamara and gang, with Rashid, they'll be able to make some noise. And I think his big arm is something not to avoid. And last but not least, I got to say this is the steal of the draft along with Cooper DeJean, Kool-Aid. How in the heck did Kool-Aid fall all the way to the 2nd round is beyond me. One may argue he was a top 10, top 15 pick. And I get a lot of what the scouts were looking at is that he's a big body frame and he's a jammer. He likes to jam, and you do that in the NFL, that comes to bite you. but this kid has raw talent, and Nick Saban absolutely loves and adore him and what he's been able to do for Alabama during his time there. I can only imagine that coming in not even as a number one, where you still have Marshawn Lattimore, but having him as a 2 or even a 3 to help lock down, obviously, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and lock down the Atlanta Falcons and gang. Excellent pick, especially in the second round. What are your thoughts?
You know, I agree. And we'll talk about it in the next segment. But back to your point, Spencer Rattler in the fifth round. I mean, you could have made the argument that Bo Nix could have gone third, fourth. I mean, I again, Bo Nix has been in college what, like 5, 6 years, and yeah, he's good. Like, but I never saw like that it factor from him. He in the big moments, I would say Bo Nix couldn't carry his team. He was never that guy to say, "Hey guys, I'm gonna put you on my back and I'm gonna win this for us." I didn't see any wow factor, and that guy went in the first round. So again, yeah, getting Spencer Rattler, which I can see why he dropped, but to the fifth round, yeah, I don't think so. Not in a draft where like QBs were flying off the board left and right. You know, they probably did get, I would say, one of the steals of the draft.
And my dad is witness to this. I actually called him and I said, "Dang, I would really like the Miami Dolphins to actually get Spencer Rattler. I know we got Mike White and all, but he's a free agent after this, and he's solid, but he's not anything out of this world." I said, "Man, I would like for the Finns to move up in the fourth or fifth round and actually get Spencer. No, it's not the biggest need, but whenever you're looking at taking a chance at quarterback, I mean, we've always had that saying together: is you keep drafting them,
Until
and you
you
keep
hit.
drafting and you keep drafting it until you hit. And the worst case scenario, you have multiple quarterbacks, so you have draft uh, packages that you could do to other teams and take a first or a second round, future first or second round for the player in the worst case scenario." But what other team would you really want to give a big shout out here that you really like what they did?
You know what? I'm a little conflicted. I was gonna go Washington Commanders. They did really good in their first draft. Under the new GM Adam Peters. But you know what? I'm just gonna keep it in our division, right? So I'm gonna say the Buffalo Bills. With all the turner like I would say turmoil and like departures they've had this season. Again, I think they had a really solid draft. Um, they did trade out of the first round, acquired more picks, and they were able to get to like at least what I would say is one of the best wide receivers in the draft in Keon Coleman. And I was reading earlier today that apparently Josh Allen was like going crazy for him, text him, "Hey, I want you, I want you." So I think I think that's gonna be a beneficial pick for them. They got Ray Davis out of Kentucky. He's a thumper. He should fit well. And Joe Brady's like run heavy approach, and that's one thing with the Bills too that I've always said that they need to run the ball more and take a little bit of the pressure off Josh Allen. He can be special when he needs to, but he needs to have some balance. They, I would say one of the things or the knocks I've read, on the Buffalo Bills is that all of their picks were they had to draft out of need, and they did, but I don't think that they necessarily reached like egregiously on any player.
No, I think Keon Coleman is a match made in heaven. I can definitely see after losing Diggs that Josh Allen is desperate to get someone in there. And when I look at Keon Coleman, especially for the Florida State, I mean, absolute stud. What a tremendous career with Travis back there. But I look at him and I see Drake London. I mean, same height, same weight, same body dimensions, same style of attack. And I think he's going to do really well. Not want to giving too much credit being a Fins fan. I know my boy Ramsey and Fuller will lock him down regardless. But I think it was a solid pick considering second round, first pick, going trading up, going getting him. Could have been even a first round type of talent just because of that. And this is a special draft class for receivers. Very talented from 1 to like 10 that you could say that maybe not a tier 1, superstar, but definitely a solid number 2 receiver. And I think Keon could be that low end wide receiver 1 to a very high end wide receiver 2, especially with the departure of Diggs and also Gabriel Davis, where now they're revamping completely their wide receiving corps. A team I want to touch base on, and I just got to give them the shout out. And again, we'll keep it in the division. And I wish we would be celebrating the Finns, but the New England Patriots, and kudos to them. They got their franchise quarterback, maybe even our favorite quarterback, and maybe even the best quarterback coming out of this class, and Drake Maine. And no, thank you. We don't want 3 first round picks. They want their franchise quarterback, rightfully so. It all starts with the Q. And what I did like is what they did to build around it. And Romaduze from Washington was extremely successful and Larry Fitz-esque all over with Banks. But I really like Jalen Polk. Maybe not a true number one receiver, but a stud number two receiver. I mean, he's a guy that's going to make winning plays and is going to get the ball. And Maine definitely needs talent at the receiver level. So to get him in the second round, I think a lot of Michael's success were based upon these two receivers, and I'm really excited for them. And then it's all about still continuing to build the interior alignment. And so getting Caden Wallace to protect your quarterback is always extremely important. Last thing you want is Drake to go fall for an injury because he's getting hit like the Washington quarterback, Sam Howell, 100 times a game. And guy can't really ever get situated, sees ghosts. So excellent pick by the New England Patriots. They also get an A with regards to my perspective of the draft. Anyone that you want to wrap and close off with?
Again, like I was saying, I'll give a shout out to the Washington Commanders once again. Dan Quinn's not a. This isn't his first rodeo. He's been a head coach before, so I did expect this draft to go heavy on defense, but I did like the pick of obviously if they hit the pick with Jaden Daniels, I mean the draft for them will be 100% a success. But one thing that I did like was they drafted a quarterback in the later rounds. Again, don't know if that's gonna play out, but it goes back to what I'm always saying, right? You keep drafting a quarterback till you have one, and years ago Washington did that. They drafted RG3 and then they drafted Kirk. So again, you can never be too sure on anything. And the fact, that they did they made a lot of good picks. I personally like, the tight end that they drafted from Kansas State, Ben Sennett. You know, especially with Logan Thomas, the uncertainty there with the injuries and all that. It's I thought it was a good pick. And one thing, if you see how especially Dan Quinn spending time in Dallas, so it's one thing that they developed really well was a tight end. They have what Blake Ferguson, that's their tight end, and then Dalton Schultz, who's tearing it up with the Texans now. So who knows if this is going to continue with Washington? But I will say, I think they had a good draft. Even in the late round gambles with like Jordan McGee out of Temple, Dominique Hampton from Washington, the safety. Are these players game changers? I mean, who knows? But again, their project's worth investing in. I don't feel necessarily like the Commanders reached on anyone as well.
And I think when you're looking at it, you're at the number two pick, somehow shipped off. You got to get your quarterback. One may argue you had Derek Maine there. You had your choice. I think they went with Heisman Trophy winner just because of the RG3 comparisons. Guy can do a lot with his legs. And it'll be interesting to see how Robert Quinn can piece it all together. But the right pick, I can't say that you could go wrong. I think if they take Maine, then definitely the Patriots are taking Daniels. Like there was no question about it. So go ahead.
Yeah, and I think for Washington, right, that's going to be the knock, right? So if Jaden Daniels for whatever reason doesn't work out in Washington, you're always going to get second guess as to why you didn't pick Drake May if he ends up working out for the Patriots. Again, like who would I have gotten? I understand the reasoning as to why they got Jaden Daniels, just because Dan Quinn's comments before the draft were like, these type of quarterbacks, they keep you up at night as a defensive coordinator, and you rather not have to scheme against them. You rather have them on your team. So I can see why they made the pick. So again, I'm not gonna knock the pick. Like we can argue it to the till we're blue in the face. I'm not gonna argue the pick should have been May, should have been Daniels. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, I understand the reasoning behind it.
And in the spirit, we'll transition now to the worst picks because we just got to get it out because I think the entire NFL and I think even newborns know what we're going to be talking about next. And we're transitioning to the worst picks, the worst drafts. And in the spirit of quarterback talk, what is your talk about, especially a couple podcasts ago, you were screaming for Washington, bring Kirk home. Atlanta gets him. We're excited, but now, oops, we have an issue. What's your thoughts about the selection for the Atlanta Falcons? What do you think was behind their reasoning on all that?
Listen, people get paid to be on TV. have been arguing what the hell was Atlanta doing. We've been arguing what the hell is Atlanta doing. It doesn't make any sense. If you were gonna draft Michael Penix or any of these quarterbacks in the top 10, right? Like if you were gonna draft them, why the heck would you sign Kirk Cousins? And that's probably what Kirk is thinking now. He's like, crap, why did I sign here? Now I have this rookie who's gonna be breathing down my neck. And again, at the end of the day, competition is good. Iron sharpens iron, right? Quarterback in this league. And, there's only a couple of reasons I could think as to why the Falcons made this pick, right? It could be, either Kirk hasn't progressed enough from, the surgery, his rehab isn't going. But like again, with all the needs that you have, right? Like we made the argument the Falcons with getting Kirk Cousins are possibly a dark horse Super Bowl contender. They have weapons on the offensive line. So again, why would you waste a valuable top 10 pick on a quarterback? And let's say fine, you're in love with Michael Penix. Again, it doesn't make any sense like to take a quarterback. You shouldn't have never sent Kirk Cousins. Just a boneheaded move. And then the video, obviously, of like the GM defending it, his pick, like the pick
Explain.
to the owner, like that's gonna live in my brain forever. Like it's comedy hour.
How to not get your key card deactivated? And he's like, "Yo, I just gave Kirk a ton of money, and we're here at the 8th pick with a whole lot of options, and here we are taking already the future quarterback." All I'm gonna say, and to not add already pain to the suffering, because poor Atlanta Hawks, they're looking at the bridge and they're really looking at, man, should we already be jumping after a successful offseason? And all you really needed to do is maybe add a couple of weapons or add to their defense, which really could have helped. I mean, I could have even made a case for Kool-Aid being here at 8. Um, uh, so many different options. And looking at this prior to recording, and I was telling you, is that Terry Houston, the general manager of the Atlanta Falcons, says that he was their second best quarterback um, in the draft. So I'm assuming either Caleb or Derek Maine or whoever, but to say that Penix is the second best quarterback in this draft, either he is going to be a genius, which right now is not looking like that, or he really just signed his termination letter like already with the general manager because Arthur Smith ain't really going to play with this type of stuff. And they really want to build a franchise quarterback, and not even having the guts to go and call Kirk and say, look, Kirk, look, man, we're sitting here at 8 and we got you. You're our starting quarterback. We feel really good about you. It's your team, but we already have to have that Jordan Love, Aaron Rodgers, because at that moment in time, it's true what you say. You're bringing in Kirk, who's got plenty of football left in him, and he's living in his parents' basement from a couple of stories. I mean, this guy, you got to love Kirk Cousins and his approach to all of a sudden he's getting adjusted, he's getting acclimated, he's a family-oriented guy, he's a committed individual, a tremendous team captain. I mean, if you saw the Quarterbacks Netflix series, I take my hats off to him, and I'll buy me a Kirk Cousins jerseys right away just because of the way that he approaches the game and in every element. And very low-key, doesn't need to make a show, very religious, and wants to do good for the community, wants to do good for the team, and pushes himself, even playing through injury, to then get slapped like this. It's going to be painful, obviously, for Kirk. I do think that he still has the reins. I think Penix will have to sit probably 2 years, but that's the problem. You're at the 8th pick, you want instant starters. You want an instant injection of those guys going in, whether offensive line, whether defensive back, whether tight end. I mean, crap, get Michael Bowers and then line up Kyle Pitts with him and give Kirk more weapons. I mean, for all we know. But that didn't end up happening in that capacity. And to transition more quarterbacks, and we already kind of touched base on this, I want to talk about the Denver Broncos and Bo Nix. What are you doing? You're sitting at 12, and of course you're seeing a bunch of quarterbacks, and I think this is where they got jittery and they got FOMO because they saw Penix get drafted. They're like, oh my God, Bo Nix is next. If we don't take Bo Nix now, we're not going to get him, period. And so instead of maybe picking something else at 12, which could have had so many options again, maybe then looking and waiting to see if in the first round, maybe later or even second round, somebody's about to take Bo Nix, and then trade up into that round to get him, but still select something a little bit better than 12. reason I have this as a bust is Bo Nix is not ready. And I fully anticipate them having to sit him about 1 to 2 years like Penix. And again, when you're the 12th pick in the draft, you want those guys to start kind of right away. And when you don't get that, your fan base gets really upset. And we were talking about Bo Nix. What's your thought on Bo Nix pick?
It doesn't make any sense because, again, back to like what I was saying, Bo Nix is he's never flashed anything in college. Like, yeah, he's a winner. Tim Tebow was a winner, but he wasn't a good NFL quarterback. So yeah, like winning in the collegiate level and then going to the NFL, like that doesn't transition always. Um, and at 12, and you said it best, FOMO. Like maybe Penix was the Broncos guy, and they're like, oh crap, he just went number 8 to Atlanta, so we have to take him now at 12. If not, we might not get another chance. In any other year, any other draft, Bo Nix doesn't even touch the first round, not even close, right? But it's just the run of quarterbacks this past draft was so insane where that's it, you had to take him. But who knows if they don't take him? Who else would have taken him, or who else would have traded up to get him possibly in the first round? I didn't have him as a first round pick. A lot of people didn't have him as a first round pick. He wasn't even the fifth best quarterback in like ranked. So I think Spencer Rattler might have been ranked ahead of him. And again, Spencer Rattler went in the fifth. So again, I can't I don't know why it was a pick, but Sean Payton, here's your chance, buddy. You got rid of Russell Wilson. You said Russell Wilson was a problem. Couldn't run your offense. You better hope that
Hmm.
this guy Bo Nix can run your offense because you're riding on the coattails of Drew Brees because you haven't done anything since Drew Brees. So just like we had another quarterback coach combo, we saw couldn't win without Tom Brady. Let's hope you're not the next guy.
Absolutely. And looking back at 12 and looking at players, they definitely could take Brock Bowers. Again, a generational talent. They don't have an amazing tight end. He would be an instant injection for Zach Wilson or Jared Stidham. I'm not saying that they don't take a quarterback, but knowing that if I could get Spencer Rattler in the 4th round, maybe reach instead of the 5th round, but then I secure a Brock Bowers, a generational talent at tight end, or don't even take him, booster your pass rusher and take Dallas Turner, who I think would really solidify them after losing Von Miller, after losing Bradley Chubb, and you need to get to the pass rush. I mean, you need to get to the quarterback with pass rush, but instead you take Bo Nix. I think it's an ultimate fail, and not too happy. Anybody else on your side that you want to highlight in this segment that was an ultimate fail?
Even if there was like these two teams, it's just like nothing else comes to mind right now. Like with the Broncos and the Falcons, it was just that bad. Where it's like even like still like Sunday night that we're recording this, I'm still shook at the decisions that were made. It's like it makes no sense whatsoever. But hey, you know what? People get paid to do that job. I don't. I just do this for fun. Talk crap
Yeah,
on the internet. But yeah, it's insane.
it is, and to be honest, how many trades that we saw going in first, second round. I mean, it was exciting overall draft. I think a lot of teams did really well. They got themselves a lot better, and of course, you're always going to have some boneheaded teams, and you're going to have teams that we mentioned are going to be extremely successful coming out of it, and that's what we do. So, moving on to the next part of our segment is now that the draft is concluded and free agency is done, and even though there's some additional free agents out there in the market that may find a home based on missing on a certain draft pick or so that we'll see. OBJ still out in the market, Connor Williams, so on and so forth. Javi, what are some of the teams that you're really interested in seeing now that all moves have been made for the most part, right? Unless something crazy occurs. What else would you say?
I'm gonna just say again, it sucks, right? As a Dolphins fan, but the Kansas City Chiefs, like we talk about the rich getting richer. Kansas City just drafted the fastest receiver in the draft. They got Xavier Worthy, and now they pair him up with Hollywood Brown. So is Xavier Worthy probably like an insurance policy because we don't know what's gonna happen with Rasheed Rice's suspension. But again, like look at all the weapons they just added. So Xavier Worthy, Hollywood Brown, you still got Travis Kelsey, you still have Isaiah Pacheco, and you still have best quarterback in the NFL, Patrick Mahomes. The guy can win with anybody. I can probably be playing receiver for Patrick Mahomes, and we'll probably go to the Super Bowl. Um, Again, the rich keep getting richer. So when you can get probably one of the top receivers in the draft at the end of the first round, I mean, that's just again a home run. And one thing that they did address, which was a concern for the Chiefs, right? They got Kingsley Suma Taia, left tackle. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
so I think I got the name right. But yeah, again, when you shore up your offensive line and you're taking care of your quarterback, getting him some weapons, again, is a three-peat out of the question? Absolutely not. Like, that's scary.
No, and it's like you say, they're trying to copy the Finns mode, speed kills. And
It
so they got
does.
Marquise Hollywood Brown. Now all of a sudden they get Xavier Worthy. Yeah, Rasheed Rice will be suspended, but he's gonna get the tap on the shoulder even if he misses a couple of games. They need him. He's their pure number one, and to be able to give a little bit of pressure off and Travis Kelsey just to do a couple of drag routes or some posts or slants right up the middle. Um, yeah, and you got the best quarterback. Three-peat is not out of the question. And when you're the Kansas City Chiefs, you literally are getting an amazing player at 28 that is really going to make an impact right away for you, along with your weapons. And we saw a little bit of the struggles that Patrick Mahomes had during the year of the wide receiver. It took Rice to get a little Rasheed Rice to get a little bit going after a while, but then things starting to click. They got Miko Hardman back from the Jets, and I think they're gonna be exactly where they need to be. And like as I mentioned with my father when we were talking about it, it's like no injuries, right? To Patrick Mahomes. Yes, they'll be, of course, a playoff team. Yes, of course, they'll be a favorites in the AFC. And so the rich get richer. That's the theme of it. And a team I wanna on my side that I'm excited, of course, as many others, is the Houston Texans. Talk about a total overhaul, a change, and going all in. Like they're literally at the poker table. They saw what they have, and they were like, "I'm all in. I'm all in because a couple of reasons. I got CJ for 4 more years on a cheap contract, so now I can do a bunch of crazy stuff. I can get Diggs' contract. I can go get Joe Mixon. And when you have a lineup of CJ, you got Mixon, and you still have a backup of Damian Pierce, who's a great backup, even occasional starter. You now have Stephon Diggs. You have Nico Collins. You have Tank Dell, and you have Dalton Schultz. I mean, that's a recipe for the Houston Texans competing. And as far as CJ Stroud staying healthy, continue to development, not going through sophomore slump, which is technically always occurs with these rookie quarterbacks because defenses have a little bit more tape on them. They know now how to zone to them or man to them or what blitzes and what coverage. But it appears CJ Stroud is a top 5 quarterback coming into next year, especially in fantasy, that is going to wreak havoc. What are your thoughts on Houston?
I mean, I'm shaking my head, right? Just because it's frustrating as a Dolphins fan that this is how you're supposed to tank. The Texans did it right. The Texans were bad for 2 years, and they hit a home run with their quarterback, and that's why now they can go out. They can get Stephon Diggs, Kamari Lassiter, Kalen Bullock, Blake Fisher, Joe Mixon, Daniel Hunter. All these all these players, right? Like when you hit on your quarterback, it makes everything so much easier. Stroud, he might have a sophomore slump, but is it out of the realm of possibility he could be in the MVP conversation this year with all the weapons they just added? And for sure we know that the Houston Texans defense is probably going to be a top 10 defense this year. Again, we have a defensive rookie of the year, second year in the system. Again, like the Texans, you know how you have your Saints as your second team. Hey, you know what? Send me an application. I want the Houston Texans as my second team. I love everything that they've done, and I love CJ Stroud. Like that dude is like, again, like I didn't see this coming from CJ Stroud, but yo, kudos to him. Like I always had belief in himself. Wasn't taken first overall, but was taken second. I think he's always played with a kind of chip on his shoulder too. He should have been the first round pick, or he should. Sorry, not the first round pick, first overall pick. But again, like it. What else can you say, man? The Texans just they did it right. Unfortunately, as a Fins fan, we're still in what year 5 of our rebuild.
Well, I wouldn't say rebuild. We're definitely there, and I'm happy to say that the Bills got a little bit better. But if all goes well, the Finns will be there. But it is incredible what Houston's been able to do, and with D'Amico Ryans, excellent coach, coming into it. And these young coaches, that's the new thing right now, bro. You got to get them under 40, and those guys are gonna be your locker room leaders. Your players relate to them. They have the same energy as your coach, and D'Amico's the first one there that's going out there and basically could still tackle someone if he wanted to on the sideline. And to end in my part before I give you the last is I'm excited to see the Bears. And I'm not a Caleb Williams guy, just like many others, and I'm still thinking that he tanks. But let me tell you, my God, if Caleb Williams tanked and he's the first overall pick, it's because Caleb Williams sucks for real. Because what the Bears have transformed in an offseason, I don't even know the Bears. Like DeAndre Swift as their starting running back, who amazing career, amazing year with the Eagles. You still have Herbert and you have Roshan Johnson, good backup running backs that can carry a couple of load when Swift needs to. You go and because you're going to get a rookie quarterback, same thing. You could take a bad contract in a Keenan Allen, but still a top 10 receiver and always producing. You have DJ Moore. Then Roma Duze, one of my favorite wide receivers coming out of this draft, of course, Malik Nabbers, and of course Marvin Harrison Jr. But Roma Duze reminds me so much of Larry Fitzgerald. His physique, his body size. I'm definitely getting his jersey. I'm a big fan of him, and I think a big reason why Penix had much of a successful year overall in Washington. And then you have Cole Kemet, another top fringe tight end. He has his disappearing acts, but then when he balls, he gets you 2-3 touchdowns. Caleb has all the recipes to be successful with the Chicago Bears. It's up to Caleb Williams. And are they a playoff team? That's not what I'm anticipating, but I'm anticipating, a 4,000 season for Caleb Williams, maybe 25 to 28 touchdowns, 15 to 18 interceptions. But I'm looking for that he's able to take the steps in the right direction in year one for an even more successful year two and really put the Chicago Bears in motion to where they need to be. And as he tells his punter, we're not going to be punting a lot, but I really doubt that. But I am excited to see the Bears. I'm excited to see the Bears because where prior to this, I wasn't even considering a fantasy Bear minus DJ Moore in fantasy drafts. Now I got like 4 or 5 targets in the Chicago Bears that all of a sudden I'm considering in fantasy because they can do some damage. What about your team?
So my last team, I would say they've improved this offseason. Everybody's picked last year, so the Detroit Lions, they were the breakout team last year that everybody anticipated like making a deep run into the playoffs. They should have been playing in the Super Bowl had they not just gotten greedy and started like doing some boneheaded stuff. But again, like Detroit, like they've gotten it right this offseason. In free agency, they signed Kevin Zeitler, DJ Reader, Marcus Davenport, and then in the draft you get Terry and Arnold, Ennis Rakestraw. Detroit has done everything that they need to do to compete once again for the NFC championship. And again, if it comes down to the 49ers and the Lions, I think Dan Campbell might have learned his lesson not to be overzealous and just don't start chasing points. Take the free points when they're there. But yeah, Detroit, they just keep getting better. It should be an interesting NFL season, and I can't wait to get some football back.
I'm with you. I mean, it's exciting. Now we go through a little bit of a drought. We go through the camp. We already got the draft, free agency. Now we'll get a little bit of the small free agency wave of players and cuts. And now that certain teams got certain players and the prospects, now they can do a couple of other additional cuts. And I'm with you. I'm really excited because I think the number one goal from everyone's perspective, minus the Kansas City, is don't make sure that Kansas City doesn't win the Super Bowl. That's probably the first thing that all coaches and general managers are saying. Anybody but them, damn it. And Kansas City's like, yeah, let's go for the 3. Let's be the New England Patriots dynasty. Let's go for the 3P. So I am excited for that too. Any closing words from your end, Javi?
The only thing I can say is please, Dolphins, don't make the mistake. Don't sign Tua this offseason. Let him play on his 5th-year option.
I second that. I already told that to many people. At this point, I only wanted to do that to create more cap. And now that we were able to make the moves that we made, there is no need. I'd rather him play with that $25 million, which is a bargain in its own. If he performs well, we have another conversation. On the worst case, we slap the franchise tag. And if he doesn't like it, I personally really do not care. Business is business, and our team has to be upfront. There is no need to pay him $60 million. Win versus the elite teams, because we know that you could bash on the low teams. You know you can compete versus the average teams. Beat the real dogs, and then you can get paid. We don't want to be the next Daniel Dimes. We don't want to be the next quarterbacks here getting a crap ton of money, but then you don't really pull out when we need you the most. And therefore, I'm with you on that as an excellent closing mark. Keep him, play that 5th year, see how it goes, tag him on the worst case. And if he doesn't like it, I really don't care. And Fantasy Barrel Gang, just to close up, we just want to give a couple special shout outs to first AO Creations. Excellent job in embroidering my shirt, the hat. The look is amazing. If you want to check them out on their Instagram, it's AO Amazing Creations. My boy Orlando will take care of you. He's simply the best when it comes to it. Quick turnaround time on any of the products that you need. Reach out to him if you need anything. And we finally won. It's been a tough week. Jesus Christ. 1-5 in my bets this week for the Fantasy Barrel Gang. But I'm super excited to announce that the Pacers took care of business today versus the injured hospital Milwaukee Bucks with no Dame and no Giannis. 113-126. Pacers came up on top. Therefore, our -8.5 was a ka-ching. So I'll take 2-5. Not excited, but that's betting for you. You're going to have amazing weeks. You're going to go 3 weeks that you were super successful. We're going to have a bad week. You can't jump off the shift. You're going to have to get on the highs. You're going to have to get on the lows. But as long as we're continuing to be over 60% winning, which we are, we're going to continue to produce here at Fantasy Barrel. We're going to talk sports. We're going to have fun. We're going to have our drinks. So continue to follow us here at the Fantasy Barrel. I want to give a special shout out to Javi for joining us again today, talking the NFL. Can't do it without him, his data, his expertise, his collaboration in regards to our perspective of where we're heading in the NFL. We look forward to recording our next episode. Episode 5 will be released next week. So Fantasy Barrel, thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful rest of your night. Peace out.